We're going to keep things real and honest here. We're going to solve quadratics by graphing, but really we're focused on the square root method. We have heard and talked about the idea of standard form a few times. That just means we want everything. We want x squared, x to the first, and then finally no x's at all. Primarily today we're going to deal with, after the next slide, we're going to deal with things that don't have that b term. So we're going to use the square root method to solve those. But just keep in mind that we do want them from greatest to least by the degree. This is part of becoming the Algebra 2 student for next year. Alright, so first things first, we do want to get everything on one side. So I'm going to subtract 5x and subtract 11. So we got x squared. We're going to end up with minus 2x. Well, we knew it at x squared, right? So that takes care of that. Next one we want to subtract an x squared and add the 1. Subtract an x squared. So that gives me 2. Alright, so we know what that's going to be, this one here. So the last one has to match. But remember, this is one of those common misconceptions. You want to make sure that this becomes 3x plus 5 times 3x plus 5. So we do want to FOIL this one out. Make sure it does match. We're going to get our 9x squared. That's totally perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. On the outside, I get 15x. On the inside, I get 15x. So that's why it says 30 up there in the middle. And for the last one, plus 25. So as we see, it does match. And that's what we're after. Okay, so that's kind of review / preview of what in the world we're talking about. So what are we going to do today? Today, we're going to focus on how to solve this equation and what it means in the end. So we know right now, if I want you to graph it, you're going to go down 16. Notice how the graph is already set up for that. What I really want to know is, where is it going to cross? We know we're going to go up 1 and over 1 and make that happen. But if we solve it, we're going to add 16. So I'm going to jump straight to this, and then we're going to take the square root of it. So what's the square root of 16? Anybody know? Yeah, it's 4. But not only is it 4, it's also negative 4. So look what happens. Those x-intercepts, the solutions are the same thing. So what part of the graph gives you the solutions? This is the x-intercepts. So at any point we can change that vocabulary, and this is what we do in Algebra 2, is I don't ask you for solutions anymore. I ask you for x-intercepts. You do the same thing. You're going to know how to do it. That's awesome. Alright. So we're going to graph these. Just a quick sketch is all we're really after. We want to make sure that you know it's down 8. Down 8. Then we're going to go up 1 over 1. Okay. And if we really, really want to know the x-intercept, we're going to solve it. So we're going to add 8. So x squared equals 8. And then the square root of 8 happens to be 2.8. So we're going to drop that right over here and pretty close to negative 3. So we get this handsome little devil right there. There it goes. And the next one, we're going to go up 3. And it goes up and over. I'm not worried about trying to do the next part because remember this parabola opens up. So if I try and solve it for an x-intercept by subtracting 3, right, pretending this is 0 now, x squared equals negative 3. Can I take the square root of a negative? No. It's non-real. And so that's where we start to get introduced to that idea. And then we do have the third one on here. Let's make it green. Right, so we're starting at 0. We're going to go up 1 and over 1. And if we try and take the square root of 0, we already have that point. So we get this happy little green parabola right in the middle. Right, so trying to tie together these combinations that we're down 8, we're up 3, we don't go anywhere, but also the a value. And it goes up 1 and over 1, up 1 and over 1. Along with finding those x-intercepts. So trying to get more specific about the graph. So that kind of leads into exactly what the next slide is all about. Our x-intercepts, if we go and solve this thing here, we're going to add 1, and we can take the square root. So x equals plus or minus 1. We got it. The square root of 0 is just that, 0. So it could actually sit right on there. Or if it doesn't cross at all, remember this is because we tried to take the square root of negative 1, and that just was not real. So non-real. And what that means is we're not going to get an x-intercept. It just doesn't happen. Right? Alright, so what are the solutions? We kind of like this question. It doesn't ask us too much. We can add 36. M squared equals 36. And we take the square root of that. Alright, don't shout it out. Right, there's nobody else there. It's just you. Right, so plus or minus 6. Not too shabby, right? What about this one? We're going to subtract 15. 3x squared equals negative 15. Divided by 3. Well, that's divisible by 3, so that's pretty nice. So negative 5. Then you're thinking, oh man, it's up to something because we're trying to take the square root of a negative. What's that mean? It means it's non-real. Non-real. We just can't do it yet. Notice I said yet. Yeah, we'll get there. Alright, next thing we have is trying to find a reasonable solution. We're going to go to the aquarium. It sounds like a good time if we're allowed out to do that. We're going to go to the aquarium. It's got tropical fish. Maybe Nemo, Dory, all my favorites. All my favorites. And speaking of favorites, you know this is one of my favorite things to have in here. The length, that is twice the width. We got a comparison. The width is on the end, that's x. The length, how do I say twice that? That's 2x. And the height of the tank is 4 feet. So volume is the width times the length times the height. That has to be 500. 500. Alright, so what do we got here? We got 8x squared equals that 500. We're going to divide it by 8. I don't know why 500 doesn't look like 500 today. X squared equals 62.5. Yeah, I have the calculation. That's cool. We're going to take the square root of that. And typically when we do the square root, we say plus or minus. But guess what? All I want is the positive, because that's the only reasonable solution for the width of this aquarium tank. Right? Because I'm not paying any money to go to an aquarium that has a negative 7.9 width. There's nothing to see. Alright? So when it starts getting to that word reasonable, that means we're going to stay in the real world and deal with some of those. Alright, as we wait for Desmos to load, we're going to drop some of these in here. If I want you to graph something, right, I want you to understand what in the world this thing means. So if we go to solve it, look at that. I don't know why I put a 0 in there. There we go. We'll take it out. Look, my x-intercepts. Right, imagine you added 25. Right, we added 25. Then we took the square root of 25. 5 and negative 5. Isn't that perfect? Right, so what would happen with 2x squared and then minus 8? Well, that turned out to be 2 and negative 2. Well, why is that? Because I'm going to add the 8. I'm going to divide by 2. But notice the other thing in comparison is that blue parabola. It seems a little bit thinner. And that's what we were after in the beginning of the chapter, talking about the a value being greater than 1 when that happens. Alright, so we'll drop the last 2 in there so you can see what happens. But take your time, pause it right now, put those in. We're trying to find not only those solutions, the x-intercepts, because you're going to put them in the next slide. See, here they are. Alright, I'll have them in the takeaways if you need help with it. But pause it right now. Okay, good. Alright, drop those solutions in here. So the first one was plus or minus 5. We talked about the next one, the 2x squared minus 8. So 2x squared equals 8. So x squared equals 4. When we divide by 2, we took the square root, so we said plus or minus 2. What's the square root of 144? Hey, that's got to be 12. And the last one, hopefully you realize just to make this x equals. If not, go back and fix it. So the square root of 225 is 15. 15 times 15. Okay? That's pretty amazing. Alright, so last one we have here, just a place for your questions. If you want to draw something, go ahead and do that. It's always exciting to see what you guys put on there. But I thought, why not find an awesome parabola on here? Remember a couple things we have. We have the vertex here. Some things you know. For this one, a has to be less than 0. Okay, so that means it's negative. Let me make that an equal sign. A has to be negative because this thing is totally open and down. And if we say that the ground here is the x-axis, what we found today, those solutions are also the x-intercept. Amazing, right? So that was the task, and that's what we got done.